We've gotten a few people in here. It's definitely it's a good start. And so we can kind of just jump into what we're doing. What is SERV Protocol? Um, where we are, where we're going, um, what we need from the validator community, and yeah, answer any questions. Right now, there's a good amount of gaps in our documentation just publicly. We're working on it and getting everything lined up and really just trying um, to be, you know, we don't really want to put anything out if we're not happy, we're not proud of it. And so there's a little bit of a slowdown that's happening with that. But I think it's just a part of the process. Um, so right now we have uh, a great team that we've assembled. We've um, we've filed in the state of Wyoming as a legal entity to create this kind of business structure that's sole purpose is starting the network. Um, and a part of that legal filing actually outlines how the majority control over the network will shift to a DAO, a legally recognized DAO in the state of Utah, um, that will be made up of validators and validator leadership. And so, a big thing that we're pushing for with SERV is, you know, focusing on the ideals of what a blockchain network can be, trying to leverage the community that we've built together around Harmony. And that's one of the reasons we're basically giving the network to the validators that showed up for Harmony, and largely continue to show up for Harmony. Shout out to Patrick, um, Kev, and Peace Love. And so there's a real ideology behind SERV that is rooted in living up to the promise of crypto and of blockchain and of self sovereignty. And in many ways, it's making it harder on us to start the network, to not just be, giving ourselves a bunch of money and not really being like, if the network doesn't work out, we will have all put in this effort, and it will have been, a learning experience. It'll be, a great opportunity for us to come together and try to build something greater than ourselves. But ultimately, we don't make money from starting the network. We make money from running our own businesses that will utilize the network. And we're not allocating ourselves and a bunch of tokens. We're not running the network from a position of authority of just being better than anyone else. The only reason we do have some level of authority over the network as it starts is for safety of the network and to make sure that it's done so securely and just resiliently. And so yeah, just starting from there, like why we're here. Anyone in Harmony will probably be able to answer that question at this point. Like, why would you want to do this? You've got such a great network already going. Why would you want to mess it up? I don't think it's about Harmony really. Like, largely the same kind of thing that's happening this week with Unity, where they're wanting to basically, take the power that they control and the network and the thing that they're building and, leverage it. It puts them in a position where they can do that, and they could do that forever. And realistically, we don't want to live with that. Like, realistically, there's a great value in what we're trying to build, that it's bigger than the past. It's a very specific goal that we're aiming for. And yeah, a lot of it is around community empowerment. Because in my opinion, there's been a huge gap between the people who have started the network and the people who are living on the network. And it's funny because it's a tale as old as time. You know, everyone there's people in power, and power, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so, um, larger than that, I think that what where Serve started from was really just trying to solve problems, trying to come in and look at the fact that like a blockchain can be an excellent location um, to to create a middleman between software projects, game developers, people who play games, people who use applications, people who make applications, um, where you know if you're trying to interact in a way that is perpetual and lasts forever, a blockchain really empowers you to do that. I mean, I've been making games since 2008, all the way back to like Nintendo Wii, um, and a bunch of indie games. Worked on a bunch of indie games and smaller games. Worked in, it doesn't matter about me, but the point is that when you're making games, the network layer, if you plan or choose to network your game, basically doubles the workload. Most of the games you're doing, you have to create a game that simulates another game while you're playing it, so other people can have can see what's going on for other people. So essentially, it just makes multiplayer gaming, as far as development goes, very difficult. And so blockchain can actually do a lot to make that easier and a lot less, of a need to centralized control for even any game project. When you put a game online, it needs to be operated, and so any game company that wants to do online gameplay, they have to operate it themselves forever, which means that in order for you to play it, they have to stay in business, and that's a kind of system that in some ways makes sense. It's fine, if you're playing Halo, the people who make Halo have to stay in business, but it doesn't have to be that way. And so one of the things that would allow for that is something like Serve, where we can come in and say, if you're making a game and you want it to be online, you don't have to run the servers anymore. You would have if you can if you want, and there's parts of it that you can run that you'll have to run if you want it to stay online. But some of it, like messaging and high scores and all the kind of basics that every game needs, doesn't have to be ran by you, and it actually can be cost effective versus running it yourself, to have us run it and you just pay whenever people interact with the and modify the network. It doesn't actually, I mean, I always say that it's not when they interact with the network, it's when they change data on the network that it costs money. So it's widely available for everyone, and it makes it so, like, as a game developer, I would just need to deploy the online interactions that my game has, and then keep the wallet that uses it for gasless transaction for my players full of funds, so that whenever people play the game, they can still interact with the network, and it makes it so that even if I die, the game can continue on because the gamers can just show up and fill that wallet. So it's pretty much a very like pointed target of what we want to do with Serve, and like how we want to create an ecosystem that's centered around data, perpetual data, rather than financial elements. For a couple of reasons, the main one being that gamers have shown, again, and game developers have shown a strong resistance when it comes to crypto in gaming. There's a lot of game developers that basically don't want anything to do with crypto, because of the bad press that so it comes with it. I know from my time working at the developer DAO for Harmony that a lot of game developers actually like crypto. They keep Bitcoin and Ethereum and a bunch of, like, they're in it. They understand it. They're interested to some degree, but they don't want to associate their brand with even what we would consider a reputable brand like Avalanche or Polygon, because there's so much negative drawback, and a lot of the people that they're targeting to buy their games are not interested. And so one of the main concerns people have had with us is just why now would you want to try to compete with Polygon or Avalanche or these bigger names, because they have so much money. And so it's a good point, and I don't think we should be considering ourselves competing with Avalanche. We're hopefully going to be comparable, but they're focused on finance. They're focused on a lot of what people that they think will be the future of finance, and I believe Ethereum and in general blockchain will be the future of finance, but not everything needs to be incorporating finance into its operation. It's very, very simple for you or anyone to be able to interact with any of these open protocols, to incorporate finance into any project you want to, if you wish, on SERV. But for legal reasons, for marketing reasons, for even just ease of how we can get the network available to most users, there's a direct benefit to us not focusing on finance, which I gotta say, the reason that we're even able to do so is because we're not taking millions and millions of dollars from VC investors, basically needing us to make it become the future of finance. The goal is really just to focus on gaming, to focus on data transfer for what I believe we'll see in the next 10 years, which is a rediscovery of how social can be when it's not owned by big corporations like Facebook and the like. That when you can actually own your chat app, and how you interact with your friends and neighbors, it will change some of the landscape of how we move forward. But focusing on gaming for now, I think that largely that's just a need. That's just a service that will come up. And in the same way that you have, a baker in your town, but there's still a chain factory that makes cheap and crappy bread. So yeah, I think that's kind of covers some of the basics of what we're doing. Why we're doing it. Where we came from. We're all blockchain enthusiasts. Some of us run nodes and servers for blockchain. Some of us build games for blockchain. Some of us are just strong believers in a decentralized future. And yeah, I do believe that what we're doing is not really. It doesn't have to be us. But it will happen. Someone will come along and say, the data should be on the blockchain, and we're going to provide a service that does it. And I do think that where we're set up and how well we're set up with, I think 200 and some validators will be allocated tokens to start the network. We would not be here if not for them, and I know a lot of you are them. And I just want to say thank you for the work that you've done to make the blockchain that you've ran work. It's incredibly worthwhile for you to be doing this, and I'm assuming we all have their own reasons for running validators or being involved in crypto in general, and in some ways, you are the reason we're here. Like the spirit of being involved and being an early adopter, like that's what we are doing. And so there would not be a SERV if it weren't for the history of Harmony and the people who showed up, just because they believed. And so yeah, I don't take that lightly, and I do believe that we're very lucky to have the history that we have, to come from one of the best communities I've ever been a part of, online or otherwise. And it does feel to me that, yeah, if we can pull this off, or as we move forward pulling this off, that we'll be positioned to really just serve the validator community and grow how we can make it worth everyone's while to be here. That is the core of what we want to do is make it worthwhile for you to run our network. We're not really in charge. We run and are responsible for setting things up, but the network doesn't work unless we keep everyone who runs the network happy. And yeah, I don't take that very lightly. I was going to think if there's anything I'm forgetting. I don't know if Kev or Rob or anybody wants to speak up on just like what we're doing. I guess I could talk more about the specifics of the network, and what you need to know as far as validation goes. What you need to know if you haven't been a Harmony node validator since 2022, which is a pretty wide window. But if you haven't, there will be a point in the future for you to basically buy into being able to run a node yourself, or partner with someone who has been running a node. But yeah, largely it'll be, it's the same exact code base. We have actually forked back since before there was a staking bug that happened on Harmony. And so we are working with a different fork at this point, but it very well should and can merge as things move forward. And so, as far as just like animosity, there should be no animosity, in my opinion, between the past and the future. We're going in a different direction. We have different ideals, but I have a great deal of respect for the developers who have and continue to show up for that protocol. But yeah, largely I only bring that up is because if you've ran a node on the old blockchain, you're 100% familiar with what it would take to run a node on our blockchain. It's actually likely that most of the nodes that are running on Harmony shouldn't necessarily need two servers to run the network. You should be able to actually work both on one, at least initially. And yeah, feel free at any point, if anybody has any questions or anything, jump up on stage and ask. But otherwise, I can kind of keep running through the laundry list of like what you need to know. Same with anybody who's already on stage. Feel free to pipe up. Legoat, it's good to see you, man. Okay, so some of the questions that have come up previously. Some of the questions that have come up previously have just been about like what you need to know, why kind of keep the code base, why not work with something like an existing non-Harmony based code base. The biggest reason is that we're very familiar with the code already. I know how to use Harmony. I know what it's intended to do, and the way that sharding can actually work when you are attempting to build a blockchain like we are, which is focused on utility for developers more than utility for end users. The biggest goal with SERV is actually to kind of change the paradigm around who uses it and make it so that developers can easily use it and easily pay for the services it provides, and that their users never have to know they're even involved with a blockchain. That the games that they play will technically talk to a blockchain behind the scenes, but it'll be no different than if they ran the servers themselves. And unlike a consumer-facing blockchain like Harmony is set up to be, shards become very difficult to work with as an end user. But when you're talking about developers interacting with shards, it's actually a lot more straightforward to scale the network as needed. And so, if I'm running a game and I have 10,000 users, it's not a big deal for them to be involved on any shard that we might have, or even the single shard that we're starting with. So we'll be starting with one shard. If I come in with my project and there's 10,000 users that I have, and they're using the blockchain maybe once a day, maybe a couple times a day, that's not a big deal. But suddenly, PewDiePie or somebody comments about their game, and they suddenly have 1 million plus users. And I guess Mr. Beast would be more relevant. Anyways, so the way that would normally work is it would mess up the throughput for everyone. It would make it kind of more challenging to use the network for the end users, and that's why shards exist, so that we can actually diversify the transactions onto new shards. When you're having to do that as an end user, it becomes very difficult because essentially, a developer has the ability to deploy their contracts on a different shard, and then the users have to kind of pick up the slack and bridge their assets and move things along. But if you're the developer taking care of the actual user interface and hiding a lot of the blockchain interactions, it becomes almost instantaneous to just jump to a different shard. So you've got this very powerful or very involved game that has a lot of interactions and suddenly millions of users. You can actually just change the front end on your game, whether that's in the app or on a web-based game. You can tell it to interact with the contracts on a different shard. And at that point, you're just basically hiding a lot of the blockchain onboarding that's such a pain in the ass, to the developers. It's just taking it off of their plate, because I know all of us in here have tried to share some of our crypto projects with people that we know that aren't natives to crypto, and it's like speaking a different language. A lot of the times it's very difficult to get them to believe that it's not that complicated, even just from the terminology, even just understanding like how to set up a wallet safely. It's people's eyes glaze over. And so getting to this point where we realize that as an industry, and we stop it, basically stop trying to convince people they need to understand all of the ins and outs of blockchain in order to play a game, or to listen to music, or do these very like human-centric things. Go to a concert. Like one of the big partners we have is with Mad NFT, and they have a dream of being able to sell tickets to concerts like through their artist program. And we're really motivated to help them kind of make that happen. But the point is, though, they should not. No artist needs to train people to use blockchain in order to consume their art. It's kind of absurd that that's even sold to people at this point, to be honest. And so that is the mission in large form: is we want to rearrange the focus, to be focused on people who make things, making them for people who don't need to know about blockchain, that just need to be able to download an app, and maybe they don't want to even use crypto to pay for it. Initially we'll be encouraging at least using crypto in some ways, and that'll be like the core of our tool set. But it's very clear that in some cases it would actually be better for growth, for the growth of a project, if they just accepted Apple Pay, if they just cut out that section and yeah, they'd have to pay, 30 cents on the dollar to sell the same goods because that's the currency that people use. Now, if they do that, they can easily say, well, you get 30% off if you pay with ETH. Like that obviously becomes like a clear, um, worthwhile venture depending on how much money you're spending. But for some people, it's not worth it. They would rather not have to deal with all of that and pay, an extra $3 or whatever it is to not have to. Um, yeah, so that's kind of where we're coming, what we're focused on, um, why we believe that even though we're small and scrappy, that we actually have a chance because there's a lot of negative opinion about being involved with crypto in a lot of ways, and by simplifying the onboarding, by in some ways it should be possible for someone to use SERV and not know that they're involved in crypto. Um, like that's one of our core beliefs, that you don't have to be like a red pilled in order to use revolutionary technology. Um, and so that's kind of where we're at. As far as like assembling the team, we've had a really great turnout, with just the people who showed up to help us start things. Um, we have a number of developers contributing to the core architecture right now. A lot of people who have helped build the old community are showing up for this new one. From uh, you know people who helped just kickstart Harmony in a lot of ways. Michael Otis, who worked on FuzzFi and is now working on his new finance project, has been a big part of developing the core infrastructure, um, helping us so that we can actually like offer the token so that people can use the network in a simple way. So that's actually, I guess, the next kind of point we should talk on is just like how do people get a hold of SERV? We're working on right now is a set of like base services for SERV, the Explorer, the staking portal, and fundraising portal. Um, and so, because it's a community-owned project, all of the SERV tokens, except for about 5% or so, will be given to the validators, so pretty much exclusively. So, if people who've ran Harmony Node since 2020 will each get about 0.7% of the total supply based on how many people that is. They'll each get 64. Right now, we're still voting on whether or not that this is the exact amount, and this call is actually a part of why we have waited to decide, because we want to get people's feedback. But right now, the initial genesis of the network will result in about 15 million tokens being just allocated. So there's no airdrop. It's actually a part of the start of the network, that everyone who ran the network since 2022 will open their wallet on the SERV network and see that they have 64,000 SERV tokens. They won't be staking or doing anything yet, but that'll be up to them to choose to just interact with the network and make it go. And so they will largely be the arbiter around who has and doesn't have SERV tokens. And so we're setting up a portal so that if anyone wants something to happen, whether that's just to be able to buy SERV tokens, like day one, I can come in there and say, I have a project on Harmony. I'd like to move over to SERV. I need SERV tokens. I have 2 ETH. Can I have some SERV tokens? Can I buy some SERV tokens from the community? Is anyone interested in selling them to me? I can set a price that I'm willing to accept on a per SERV token basis. And someone, initially it'll just be validator. Validators will be able to decide whether or not they want to accept some portion of that 2 ETH. And they can allocate a certain number of SERV tokens. The the mechanism that we're setting up will essentially, the 2 ETH that I put in when I make that proposal will be locked, and then I will ratify to accept the SERV tokens, and when I do so, it will automatically give the ETH to whomever allocated them. And so there's not really any other tokens except for SERV on SERV. Initially, it's intended to leave the SERV tokens, to leave the tokens that are allocated for SERV on the network where they're held. And so when I'm saying this proposal, it'll actually be interacting with the Ethereum blockchain as well. And so I will be putting that to ETH on Ethereum, and the contract interaction will actually communicate with the contract on Ethereum once the SERV tokens are allocated. So it's a sort of bridging, but there's not really an asset that is held or and is made vulnerable like previous situations. Hey, Alexis. Yeah, so there is a difference around safety. There's a safety mechanism implied that we don't want to be asking people to migrate their liquidity to SERV. We want SERV to act as a kind of layer 2 to any blockchain that wants to use it. The actual genesis of what made it clear that we could build a network like this was initially working to, I could just say, like, when I started to try to leave Harmony, it became clear that the code base for Harmony is actually pretty great. It allows for, especially with like the built-in VRF, a verified random function or a random number, so that you can actually have truly random aspects of the net of whatever you're using the network for. It actually reduces the size of contracts that allows them to become much more robust than if you wanted to move to even Polygon or AVAX or even DFK chain. There's a major advantage to using the code base. And so the reason that we actually realized that this was viable was that we started to build an infrastructure that would allow for, actually it was Knights and Peasants that originally reached out and was looking for a way to basically keep, their game alive. Their Knights and Peasants game was not as fun on Polygon because it cost more, because of the exact reasons I was just describing. It's more costly to use on Polygon, even though it is more affordable. It's still not like affordable. And so what we started to set up was a relay system that would say, here's a simple contract interaction on Polygon that says, go do a task in Knights and Peasants. It doesn't actually compute the task. It would just basically register that you wanted to do that. Our network relay code would pick it up and update the results back on Polygon, and the user would never even need to know that the computation was done on any network. In this case, it was Harmony. And we realized that because you don't really need to know that you're interacting with this relay, the network that is the relay could be any network. It doesn't have to be Harmony. And so why don't we just spin up a simple network to run these relays? And once we started to plan to do that, it became pretty clear that we should just run SERV. We should just create this network, because we're already going to be doing, what it can do. It's very clear that there's a need for it, because we're being asked to build it for other blockchain projects. The Gen K also came forward after that when we were talking with Knights and Peasants, and Shan from Knights and Peasants and Gen K on Polygon really just showed up big time for SERV, and helped fund some of the legal work that we've done to start the project. And I'm a big fan of hers and Gen K, and I really do believe that what we're, like I said earlier, like what we're building just kind of needs to happen. It's not like we're not even. It's not a question of whether or not we will or won't be successful. It's really just a matter of how patient we are to wait until we fill the void that people need to be filled. Um, yeah, so pretty straightforward there. I want to try to open it up and see if there's any direct questions. And you guys, a lot of people kind of showed up. Thank you guys so much for showing up. And any of my co-hosts, if there's anything that you want to comment on or kind of lead the conversation a little bit, greatly appreciated.
Yeah, could we maybe discuss like kind of some of the vision of what it is that we're actually building here with everybody? Because some might not know exactly what it is that we're trying to achieve. Maybe even break into what you were talking about in the Discord server about Unity in your conversation yesterday, or was that this morning? I don't even remember at this point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
A
So
2-day monologue.
a 2-day monologue, is that what you said? um, yeah. So I mean, are you talking about with the Unity comments I was making? Like we've had big plans to build essentially a really high quality Unity asset store plugin that makes it easy to make games that connect to the blockchain. Um, it was uh, it was a really Unity is a great software tool, and it was a really sad discovery to find out that they're changing their business model to be basically download based. And so the conversation that were happening yesterday was basically like, as unfortunate as it is, like I've been using Unity since 2012, and it's just not a viable business strategy for anyone to use, in my opinion. If you're having to pay, uh, if you're having to pay a certain fee per download, you're not even basing that on how many users you get. It's more related to how the users choose to use your software. Um, and yeah, ultimately, Unity itself is centralized, um, and has the power to do this, because people enjoy using it. And yeah, unfortunately, we've had to kind of take a step back from that and realize that as much as it is, as Unity is very like a high quality tool that developers will probably continue to use to some degree for the foreseeable future. Um, like if our primary focus is in making it easy to make decentralized and essentially, NFT powered games, and the software that we're asking people to use or encouraging people to use um, doesn't really respect the idea of a decentralized ownership model, then we can't encourage that. We have to basically take a step back and take a stand to say that that's not a healthy way to encourage development. That software on a like pay to use model, like it's one thing to sell your software, and it's one thing to not avail your software if you want to. But if it becomes a standard that software cannot be downloaded unless you pay, um, then we're going down a path that basically leads us away from decentralized ownership, because it doesn't even matter if like you sell a token, if you sell a tokenized version of the ownership of your game to someone, and they can resell it whatever, but as the developer you're on the hook for however many times they choose to download it. It doesn't work as a business model anymore. It doesn't allow for decentralized ownership if that still comes back to some person who happened to have made it. It's just the same problem. It's like reintroducing the problem we're trying to solve, by allowing for the network operations to be decentralized. It's then saying no, you even if it were, you're not allowed. We still have to be paid for each time this gets. It's they're basically like game stopping themselves. Like the ability to buy used games is not. It wasn't easy. It hasn't been that easy to begin with, and the main point though is that um, we are focused on building tools that makes it easy to integrate our software. And there are other answers to this problem. Unreal is a fine answer. They're a little more big as far as install size. It's like not easy to install an Unreal game without going into the gigabytes of data. But Godot is also a great option, which one of our core developers, Tel Chakra, is a huge fan of. He's been advocating for that since we sort of started SERV. But yeah, I think it's just more of the same. Like it does feel like I'm kind of renewed in our vision for SERV because it was pretty obvious as soon as Unity made this announcement that every developer, I don't know of any developer that is not up at arms about this. And in some ways, by being a Unity developer, we put ourselves into this vulnerable position by I don't want to get into the similarities to Harmony, but it's important that we recognize that if we're building software that we want to last forever, we have to build it with software that we're in charge of. It doesn't have to be like Unity. Unity could about face and make it something reasonable and give software to the people who make it, but they don't have to. It's their possession. They possess this software that people have come to believe is their own. But we're hoping to actually make it so that when people do release something, the ownership can be easily distributed and resold, and not even a question anymore over who owns it. It was always the person who held the keys to this particular project. And so if you buy a game on the portal that we're hoping to set up to make it easy to sell and buy games, then it's not a question of it's never tied to an account. It's always tied to the ownership of the game player, and so it makes it kind of interesting. In some ways, depending on who runs the project and how they choose to do it, you can end up with game ownership that's closer to like cartridge based, where you can actually just transfer ownership on your phone from one phone to another, or you can use an account model that's way more elaborate. And there's just a lot of really interesting things that I think are going to come as we actually solidify what it means to have a decentralized ownership model for software, primarily games, but I think there's other things where it will become obvious that that's going to be interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what we've been talking about a lot, just in general. So I guess one thing we can talk about is just like where SERV is. SERV is we're on Discord. We have our own forum set up at forum.servprotocol.com. We have a Telegram group that's pretty small right now. We are we have a number of key partners that we're working with. We do have plans to integrate with other networks that are focused on things that we're not focused on. I think right now we've had some early kind of conversations with the Findora network. Nothing permanent there or definite there, but the ability to have a privacy layer would be nice. We have every Thursday at this time. We do have a weekly sync where we're talking about what's been going on, what everyone's been working on. If there's as the project as we go into live testnet deployment, which was set to hopefully happen today, but it looks like we're going to need a little more time. We will be involving the community in that conversation, just so that we're actually maintaining the reality that this is a community owned project. Like SERV itself is community owned, and we want more than anything to support the people who show up to use the network. And as far as just like how people can get involved, yeah, joining the Discord, getting involved on the forum, introduce yourself, tell us what you're working on, how we can help, um, and yeah, at this point we're still getting the network started. So hopefully in the next week we'll have the testnet live. We'll be able to start incorporating validators and actually running the network. Kind of answer some of the nagging questions around when you have a decentralized version of Harmony, like we're trying to build, it might actually end up being a little bit slower in this sort of 3 seconds timeline, just so that we can actually have the people who are running the network actually making the blocks and being decentralized. So there's some of those things we're looking to answer with the testnet launch. And yeah, really just get a feel for what everybody's expecting and wants. And yeah, all the way up to what kind of focus we have with the network. As far as there's some things that are difficult to sort of shift gears around legally, because we do want to be acceptable in the U.S. And right now that's becoming a political problem, it seems. And so there are some benefits to focusing on gaming and data hosting rather than finance. But it is 100% our goal to be legally recognized in the U.S. And so if as things become more clear, it would be just very easy for us to shift gears and to open things up as the kind of courts catch up. Yeah, I think that covers a lot of the basics. Trying to think if there's anything else. I guess there's some other things around just the token allocation. So because we have 233 currently set up as the number of starting nodes, people who are being grandfathered into the network operation. That puts us at 64,000 times 233. Let's actually do that off the top of my head. So 14,900,000 tokens. And the network will initially start with 15 leader nodes. So the SERV Foundation is going to be starting 15 nodes that will also receive those tokens that they'll help run the network initially. And so all of those funds will be dedicated to perpetual operations of the network. We're not expecting to pay anyone that works on SERV directly for just being a part of the network. We will be able to use those, or planning to use those, for operational costs and making sure that we have all of our bills paid. We are able to ensure that the network is online, and so there's that kind of allocation, and so yeah. Yeah, it puts us at about 6.4%. As far as like a fair launch goes, puts 6.4% of the total supply will be under stewardship of the SERV Foundation. Blown up. And yeah, trying to think of the staking algorithm. Is 100% based on the same one that is ran on Harmony. There is a difference, whereas we won't be using 441 million. We will, and because we have a much lower token supply, aiming for around 1 million SERV tokens to be allocated per year. So it puts the APY closer to like 6.4 or 7%, annually, and that's distributed based on which server operators actually show up to run the network. So, there will be some amount of benefit to those people who show up earlier, because the 1 million per year will be allocated to whoever is running the network, and so we will slowly see a reward, a greater reward to those who run the network versus those who either sell or don't partake in the network's operation. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any other major things. Yeah. One shard. And the plan is to actually add additional shards as the demand becomes clear. The expectation of how many transactions we can easily have on the network is loosely based on the past. And so once we get into, in the 40 to 50,000 transactions per day, then we can start to explore running another shard if there's any major partners, which will hopefully be a big push that we'll have, to actually have headhunting for game development and project development, where we can offer essentially free to use services to a business if they adopt to use SERV, if the validator community supports that. So basically proposing, we want to add, even like something simple like Candy Crush wants to use our data layer so they can save money on something. They have over 1 million users a day. Can we basically create a buffer for them to save some costs, and probably have even spin up a shard just for them? Yeah, we would be able to do that pretty quickly. I guess one of the things we haven't discussed at all is this LLD, the limited liability DAO. Starting in 2024, Utah is allowing people to register an LLD, a limited liability DAO, and we're hoping to set that up, planning to set that up for the SERV developer DAO. Sorry, I have a bit of a sore throat today, but the way that will work is essentially the LLC that is starting the network will transfer the majority say in the network's operation to there's no water, to this LLD. It's currently, the mission is to actually get the validators that are running the network and helping us start the network, with Patrick and Peace Love and Kev and just myself and a couple other validators, would become essentially governors of this LLD. They would be responsible for communicating with the validators, keeping things, paying for actual like operational costs of like what POps used to do. So basically making sure that the Explorer is active, making sure that the testnet runs, and basically putting the validators in charge of the network long term. And so this initial phase is intended for us to spin this up, move things forward, establish some kind of basis and layers and what can and can't be trusted to start, and then from there moving on to establishing this new governance structure. The initial foundation and people who start it will either dissolve or become something different. I think in some ways it will probably stay the same, and we'll have a lot of the validators who are going on to move to the LLD step down, and it should actually help us as far as the way that regulatory issues are seeming to arise in the U.S. And some amount of the initial foundation treasury will probably be allocated to the LLD, so it also has its own perpetual operational budget. But yeah, the goal is to basically, start the car, make sure it can run, and hand the keys over to the people who run it. And this hopefully will happen early next year as the LLD filing becomes legally acceptable in the U.S. Yeah, I think a lot of what we're trying to do here is uh, showing up for the promise. Sorry, I get kids in the room trying to get in on this call. All right. Yeah. So, in my opinion, what we're doing is ambitious, but it's ambitious for the right reasons. It's not ambitious around trying to make a bunch of money or to, WADME our way into the future. It's actually it's ambitious because what we're offering is a lack of greed. What we're offering is an ideology of sorts that says, like, you guys run the network, why don't you own it? We run the network, why don't we own it? And so yeah, I guess that raises another point of, like, these people who are founding the network, like I said, they are not being directly compensated for the work they're putting in. Some of the validators will inherit their validator supply, but, like, speaking for myself, like, I'm more or less leading the initiative, but I have no, like, when it comes to the LLD, when it comes to actually owning and running the network long term, I will be no different than anyone else. That's entirely how it's set up. The legal structure, we actually had to work with our lawyer to make sure that I can be removed at any point by the people who show up to run this. That I can basically do nothing special as the person who's responsible for the network, like, legally. The most I can do is, like, request a meeting. But that the governance is actually based on the 9 people who showed up to start the network. And any of us can replace ourselves. We can all. It is entirely rooted in our ideology. It's not at all trying to take advantage or to do harm to anyone involved. Which is it sounds like it should just be the way it is, but it's far from it as far as legally goes. Legally, it is, and this is how other networks operate. It is essentially a piece of property. Anyone who starts it owns it, and they can't even sell it if they want to. They are only able to relinquish ownership if they die, or even then, it's debatable, and that's just not what we're about. So yeah, in the next week, we should have our testnet live, and from there, we'll be testing what we can and can't do as far as running the validator, running external validators, how fast we need the nodes to be in order to not have them all be kind of centralized on one location. How much work it will be to actually incorporate external leader nodes, which I don't think it'll actually be a lot of work if we can actually slow the network down to afford it. And yeah, so once we get to that point, we will be able to start the road towards mainnet. I do believe it won't take very much time once we have the stable testnet operational. We've gone through a lot of the decision-making process to get to mainnet. We have a lot of partners that are waiting for us to get to mainnet, and from there, yeah, we'll be focused on adoption. The only success metric on SERV is daily active users or transactions per day, and essentially, there will be some period of time where there's going to be a whole lot of tokens that will be introduced into the ecosystem, and so it's going to become clear, what you should or shouldn't expect to pay to be involved. But the goal is to make sure that the network stays affordable, because that's a key part of it being a competitive option for other centralized services. So, there is the expectation that, essentially, that we aim for stability in the price, and consistency and affordability, and that will lead us to where, it's likely that we'll have some kind of, I don't know what you would call it, I guess just volatility in the price initially. We'll establish what people are willing to pay, and as that moves forward, it should drift. I don't want to get too much into price action. I guess it's not really relevant. I just want to make sure everybody is aware that the goal and the need of the token to be a utility token to help run the network, it has to, in some ways, it has to stay affordable, which is roughly, one serve per user per year, maybe 5 serve per user per year, which, it depends on how much they're using the tokens and how much we can fluctuate the gas prices. So yeah, there's a lot that we'll be able to get to take control over based on interacting with developers directly, and making sure that they're using the network as effectively as possible, to ensure that the price, we can actually lower the gas prices to afford for that, assuming certain aspects of the development is something we can interact with. We can just talk to developers around how they're using their serve and make sure they're using it effectively. And cool. Yeah, it was. If there's any other questions, I'd love to jump in, and if anyone else on stage wants to help, if there's anything I'm forgetting. I know Rob, me and you have been talking at length about just documentation and stuff. I don't know if there's anything I'm forgetting to talk about. Hey, Tim's here. What's up, Tim?
I'd say you're doing a great job. You've been definitely talking for quite a while now.
Oh wow, it's 2:40.
Definitely covering everything. I guess I can go over a little bit of what's going on right now. Well, you already brought up about the testnet deployment and how that's coming along. Should be up here shortly. Working on a roadmap and also working on documentation. Edd and I've been working on that. Tail Chakra, building a staking portal, I believe is pretty much just ready to be integrated with the main site now. There's a lot of stuff going on currently, and it's gonna be like a faucet coming out here because a lot of things are integrated together. So James, Ed, and Clay are working on the website. I think they're just working on some graphics mainly now for it. Patrick's been building the toolbox, so Validator's going to have access to EasyNode's toolbox for SERV. And also Sonic Swap's been building a funding proposal portal.
Let me clarify that in case they listen to this recording. They're open to helping us deploy it. They haven't been working on the actual proposal portal just yet. That's something that I've been kind of working on. Basically, it's actually something that Bad at Blockchain has been helping me with, because it's essentially it's like a cross-chain Kickstarter DApp. So yeah, essentially just what I was talking about before of allowing someone to ask for funds or ask for an exchange or ask for some kind of rate. But yeah, the idea, the goal, and I've been talking to them, and they're very open to it. I think they're based out of Canada, and they're trying to get into the legal. They're trying to make sure that they're following the law as best they can, and so the only thing that they said was there's been some legal framework in Canada around IDOs, and they want to make sure that it doesn't appear as an IDO, and if it does, then they would want to try to get like legal permission to do something like that. And so I don't think it'll appear as an IDO because it's not exactly like that, but it is, in some ways there isn't a clear example of what it is we're doing, because usually, I mean, other than something like Bitcoin that gives the tokens to the network operators only, there's not a great example of just giving everything away, and allowing them to do certain things. And so, yeah, if we were selling like the treasury that is established to run the network, that would clearly be an IDO. But if yeah. So sorry to interrupt, but just to be clear around their involvement, they've been very supportive. We've actually had a great turnout around a lot of the projects that we know from our community. OpenSwap's been very supportive. They actually donated the staking portal that they built. They open sourced it for us to use. Alex from OpenSwap has been a great advocate as well. And yeah, Knights and Peasants is involved. Mad Art is involved, and their lead developer is actually on our founding team. And let's see if there's any. I'm trying to think if there's other partners that we have. Yeah, FuzzFi is involved with their rebranding, and I'm sure there's other people. It's been going great in that regard. But go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Kev. What do you got?
I was just going to say if we can kind of let Patrick explain what he's doing as far as EasyNode and all that stuff, just for the people who are listening to the recording. That way they can kind of know what he's working on.
Check. Hey, there we go. Working now?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I've just been working on porting over the EasyNode toolbox, so it'll be able to install and manage it on the SERV network. And it'll be built out, so if you have a powerful enough server, once we know what we need, it should be able to run side by side with the other stuff. So I've just been working with Edd on getting some internal servers running here first, and once we can get that done and get the tokens being distributed on a testnet, I'm sure we'll have room to get people in to test if they'd like.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, Patrick has been just making this process just feel so much more feasible. He's a wizard, and we're lucky to have him on the team. Like, legitimately though, like, EasyNode is just such a top-notch piece of code, and yeah, the mere fact that because of I think a lot of, like I was just talking about with the partners, I should have mentioned Patrick as one of the bigger partners there, just because, like, legitimately, we're coming at this from a place of, like, very limited funding, but we're also we're kind of carrying the promise of an open source ideology of, like, we're able to kind of keep things moving from where they were. I I don't want it to seem, antagonistic around Harmony. I believe honestly that um, we're creating something that's not the same thing that the current leadership is moving forward with, and I don't think that they were mutually exclusive at all. But there is something just very powerful about the community stepping forward and making its own community version of the network. Because we do have a staking portal that has been built. We do have um, easy node that's been built, and these things just are automatically plugged in the same way. One of the things that's been great is actually um, reaching out to projects that have left and have no interest in coming back and saying, like, would you be interested in deploying if this were the case? And um, most, I don't know, some of whom we haven't reached out to, just to be sure that we have the test net ready to go and ready for them to test immediately. But everyone that we have reached out to has been just excited about the idea of bringing their code back to life, because they loved it here. Largely the consequences of things that happened had made it impossible to keep going, but they really did love what they had created, and they loved the community that they had helped build, and they really wish it's in some ways it isn't supposed to be, but it is, and effectively is. It's like a what if protocol. Like, what if these things didn't happen? We have this is our protocol, to kind of go a different way, and we have a lot packed up in this jettison escape capsule. We've got a bunch of really powerful and mighty teams that are showing up and have built things and are happy to lend a hand. Patrick being just a behemoth of one of those kind of people. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, thank you, Kev, too, for bringing that up. That's a good point. I'll let it go. Anybody want to jump on here?
If anybody wants to come up and ask any questions, please feel free to request the mic. We're happy to have you up here. Ed, did you want to touch on the DaVinci relaunch?
Yeah. So a couple months ago, the opportunity to help relaunch DaVinci was brought to me, and I have a bunch of DaVinci Gallery NFTs, and the story of DaVinci was very sad because Bruno is a friend, and the way that the project kind of fell apart was very disappointing to him and to pretty much everyone in the community. There was a lot of mistakes that were made around how the project was organized. I think we can say reflectively, but it was very clear that for a lot of people, that was the place to share and to sell and to commune around art and creators. And the fact that it went down because of the founders being able to just vehemently distrust or dislike each other was just kind of petty and sad. And so a couple months ago, I reached out to the Bruno, the the developer that is not Bruno, who has since kind of retired from everything, and just asked, like, hey, the brand's tarnished, but there's a lot of people who still want their NFTs back. They want to be able to at least move on from what they had built, and they had a lot of invested. And I asked Bruno, and he was like, it's not up to me. The other developer took access away and took everything and just sort of put it in the trash can. So I just reached out to him privately, and but I wouldn't say begged, but I was very just I was pretty close to begging, just saying, like, hey, let's try to, what do you think? Please let me try to take things over and make things right for these people. I didn't expect him to respond, but he did within like a couple of hours actually. And so over the last like 2 or 3 weeks, I was working with him to transfer all of everything was really centralized the way they had it set up. Like only he had access to the code, and it was kind of surprising that that was how DaVinci was set up. I was not aware, to be honest. And so DaVinci will be relaunching on Harmony, and there's not really a team to take over it, but I'm paying to host the servers for now. And the plan is I've started working with Mad Art to basically to create a way to remint your token so that not only will it be kind of easier to migrate because they weren't especially set up in a way that was easy to migrate from DaVinci. I don't know what they were thinking, to be honest, but we're going to be basically open sourcing everything, and anyone. It's not as though like we're throwing DaVinci in the trash can. That's for other people to decide what they want to do. But the tokens will be able to be migrated to an open standard and accessible on any standard marketplace, whether that's NFT Key or OpenSea. And so that's what we're working on right now. I have a little bit of work left to get the old site. I'm going to be basically make sure that the developer who handed it over didn't do anything unscrupulous in handing it over. And so I'm working with Jenya of the Harmony ex Harmony core team developer who's volunteering his time to make sure it's safe and review that code with me. And then we'll be relaunching DaVinci Gallery at the old domain, and at that point, everyone will be able to have all their NFTs back. And then I'm personally working with Mad NFT to help people who come from DaVinci have a way to migrate if they wish, so that they could use the Mad NFT deployment that will be on SERV, or they'll be able to not work with SERV at all. It's not a thing that we're doing that's intended to be harmful to DaVinci or uplifting to SERV explicitly. It's intended to be the right thing to do for our community, and so hopefully that comes together really swiftly and people are happy. To be honest. There's not a lot of gain. There's a lot of like the fact that it should happen, and I feel good about contributing the time to do it. But there's no monetization like concept. I do hope that Mad, can succeed from it. Their team is they're good people, and like I said, Mafus is one of their lead devs, and he's helping start SERV. So there's that mutual aid, but other than that, the goal is, a lot of what we're doing to do is that how things should be. This is what should happen. Harmony DaVinci should be open, and people should have their NFTs. That's the whole fucking point. Excuse me. But yeah. Peace Ants, what's up, man? Did you have anything you wanted to add? You jumped up.
No, yeah. Thanks for your services. Great. Yeah, that's amazing. You're bringing DaVinci back. Like you and a little help, like community champion over here. Okay, so I did have a couple questions, just kind of money questions. One was like, I guess you're gonna airdrop give the tokens to previous validators on Harmony, but if I don't think my account, like me personally, I wasn't a validator for Harmony, so I was wondering if people can like buy the SERV to become a validator, and how much that would kind of be, how much we'd be looking at for that. And then another question was, I learned how much it can be to have a block explorer. Like, I guess the server cost can run up to like $30,000 a month sometimes, I guess, when in bull markets. So I was wondering, like, I don't know, is there like some good block explorer solutions that are like not so expensive?
You know, I'll answer the second one because that's first, because that one's easier. You know, there's options, and they largely have to do with getting people to run servers out of their house. As weird as that is, like, legitimately, when you're paying for cloud services, especially like an Explorer, which you want to be as fast as possible and read access to, you know, large quantities of data, it's just costly. Cloud services plus large memory footprints is a lot of money. So that, I think I do have a dialogue with GitBlock, and they're basically waiting for us to launch testnet, and then they're going to give us a quote. They run an Explorer service right now. They've actually deployed on Harmony. They retired their Explorer, so it's like it's basically locked on an old block. Hasn't been updating, but it's currently an option. I'm assuming that it's going to be pretty cost prohibitive if we go that route. I don't know if it's in the 20s, the thousands of dollars a month, but it could be. And like, legitimately, what we're looking at right now is trying to run servers that will run the Explorer out of an actual home office space, so that it's because the ability to run and have a large amount of storage that is high speed out of even a commercial office, which is what I'm hoping to set up for some of the leader nodes, is just massively cheaper if you actually have your own cabinet with your own hardware and you're running the Explorer that way. Obviously, there's consequences to that. It's not ideal. But when you're looking at it from a perspective of like operational cost, it's like a cost of doing business that we can establish for much less than would be if you were trying to just use AWS or DigitalOcean or something like that. And then the the other question, I'm sorry, can you remind me what that one was? Kind of got locked into this one.
No, yep. Oh, shoot, I'm getting a call.
About
Okay.
becoming a validator.
I can you still hear me?
Yeah. Can you, P-Sans, are you there?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now, bro.
Okay, I lost you guys. I'm gonna leave and come back. Oh,
Okay.
well, I guess I could still say my question. It's the how much would it be to start a validator? But I'll be right back.
That's right. All right, I'm with you. Okay, so hopefully he comes back. So, you know, this is a funny question because it's not up to me. It's actually, I guess it's sort of up to me, but not in the official capacity of running the network. It's going to come up to, you know, what validators, you know, are around, and what they are willing to sell tokens for. Legitimately, I would say first, technically, the threshold is still 10,000 tokens. And so in order to run a validator, you need to hold 10,000. This is something we can fluctuate and change if we wanted to. If it's obvious that that's not ideal when you're looking at it from a perspective of not these people who are inheriting the network, you know, people who have ran the network on Harmony since 2022 will be issued 64,000 SERV tokens when the network starts. They won't be, having to collect them or anything like that. That's just a part of the network's start. And so, because we're definitely going in a different direction, the validator community, which is a part of why we want to have this call, is that like it's up to you guys, and it's up to the people who show up and say like, hey, Patrick and Ed, can I buy some tokens from you? And then, in my opinion, if you're asking me, I know that you are the ideal person to run a node, and I would be happy to negotiate something that's very reasonable for you to be able to get a hold of those. But realistically, that's not. It's actually kind of a problem for me to sell tokens because I'm a founding member, and so any person that is running a validator that is not a founding member is going to have an easier time selling their tokens, because there's a question around what it means to be orchestrating the launch and then immediately selling or trading those tokens. But I would say, that the 233 nodes, it's pretty much public knowledge. You'll be able to ask any of the people who have ran nodes if they'd be willing to sell some of your tokens. If you if you're feeling like, if we're finding even as a community that the 10,000 token threshold is too high, then we can adjust it. It does seem to me that by giving everyone that's inheriting the network 64,000, and then asking people to buy into running their own, it might make sense for us to lower that, to be honest. We're probably not going to have the majority of the 233 running nodes. We are currently planning to have more than enough slots for everyone, but when we're talking about lowering that threshold, it does come into question around what that will, what consequences that will entail, especially with like the ability for someone to run multiple, nodes, and basically, like, you can't really game the system that much because it's essentially the one problem we are looking at is, which we haven't really discussed at all, is talking about like actually onboarding new validators. So it shouldn't be a problem. Like, any external node is permissionless. Anyone can run an external node. When we get into like running internal nodes or leader nodes, the questions kind of change a little bit, where it's actually based on the VDAO or the SVDAO's governance model. So like SVDAO governors will essentially decide which validator nodes should be considered internal nodes, that should be considered leader nodes, and will be able to write and create blocks. And so, yeah, to answer your question, it's up to the people who are allocated those tokens. It's more complicated for the people who are also founding the network, and all of these kind of metrics and parameters should be discussed, which is hopefully a part of why this call is happening, is to really like lay that on the ground and say like, we need to decide these things. Where the SERV LLC is deciding a couple of things to make things just start and work, but there are things that we shouldn't and do not wish to decide, to be honest, and that would be one of them.
Oh yeah, no, that's a really good explanation. So is there any idea of what the token price is going to be, or is that going to be like an open market kind of thing when the validators get it, they would how would they swap it on some decks or?
So SERV won't be there. We'll have decks of sorts, but it'll probably be mostly for like in-game tokens and things like that. The work we've been doing, or I've been talking with Sonic Swap about basically having a SERV deployment that would have a series of contracts on other networks, and so it would essentially be like This is what the proposal portal is about, or the funding portal. And so initially, if you wanted to buy SERV, we are going to be working to set up a portal for you to say, I would like to run a validator. I need 1,000 SERV tokens, and I'm willing to offer X. And so the offering would probably be, on Ethereum or on another network, wherever you're choosing to kind of deploy that side of the proposal. And then our proposal portal mechanism will lock your tokens on a different network, issue your tokens, allow for someone on SERV to pay for those tokens, and essentially you buy SERV tokens on another network and will receive them on SERV, and then your tokens will be freed to the person who is offering the SERV tokens. So it's essentially like a atomic swap of sorts. Kev, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add. I don't know if you guys were here back in the day when they were doing like Fox Swap was doing like those escrow services. So it's kind of similar to that from what it sounds like. Like, so let's say if you're on Polygon or whatever, you want to offer like $200 worth of that token, it'll get locked up in an escrow type contract. The offer would be posted on whatever Sonic Swap decides to post it on. If a validator or whoever holds SERV likes that offer and they accept it, it'll initiate the escrow swap with the contract or whatever. Is that kind of what you're saying, Ed?
Gotcha. So it's kind of like a cross-chain contract.
So it works based on multiple contracts that interact with each other, using what are essentially dummy relay servers. So the servers are set up to be able to complete the transaction that happens from one network to another, but they're not able to do anything else. And they basically are just deployed to listen for the events that need to take place. And so it's a single server, or actually it's a set of servers that are watching both sides of the contract interaction. And when both sides are met, then it tells both sides to do the second part. But yeah, it's actually based off of how FuzzFi had handled and set up their bridging mechanism to go to Arbitrum.
Oh, okay. All right. Very cool. Yeah, thanks for all the info. You guys have a really great project over here in your hands. So, yeah, definitely I'm looking to be a validator. I got a server. I built a server recently in my house, so I'm ready to decentralize the network. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, and we got to get your your education portal going over there too. Definitely can see how that would be very helpful. And shout out to the work you're doing there to let people make educational content for dollary dues. Good deal. Yeah, it's good to see we got Forge Slosh in here. It's good to see you, Van. Timbo, always a pleasure. Well, you will definitely be allocated tokens here. And Mint Bees, yeah, good to see you too. Yeah, Smoking Joe, see you. And
We got a Zer in here, and Access, and Megalodon, XL. If any of you would like to come up and be a speaker, ask any questions, or have anything to say, please feel free to request the mic. Happy to have you up here. Is there anything else that any of the speakers would like to add?
Well, I guess I have a question. I mean, I'm sure I think the answer is yes. It's going to be is Serve going to be an EVM compatible, so I can just like, grab any Solidity thing and put it in there. But yeah, it sounds like it is going to be, because it's going to be pretty much like Harmony. That's cool. Do you are there any like dApps that you guys are working on Serve or anything like that? But there's a lot of infrastructure work, I'm sure.
Sorry, I just got a weird spam call and it interrupted what you were saying a moment ago. But yeah, we're definitely working on a few different things. I think a lot of it's focused on partnerships. I have a game I'm working on outside of Fish Fight. There's a kind of turn-based strategy game I'm working on, and honestly, I've joked with the team that like all this kind of protocol work is great and all, but I want to get back to making games, and like I'm basically just focused on getting the network up and out so that I can focus on making games again. But yeah, as far as beyond that, I think we're definitely looking at trying to partner primarily with a lot of the projects that had been on Harmony. We have been in talks with the Defira team about what their plans are, but they're basically not sure enough about what they're doing before they could commit to anything. And a lot of what they're focused on is finance, so it's not. They have games that they're also focused on, and so there's still like room in that conversation to basically allow Defira to use Serve, even if it's just behind the scenes. Yeah, I'm really hopeful that even just with building the tool set, so people can easily add blockchain interactions to their software, whatever it may be, will make it easier for. I was really looking forward to having a Unity Asset Store plugin. I think we might still do it, even though I don't know. In some ways, it's just good for getting the word out, but yeah, frankly, that's been probably the worst news in the last month. Is just the idea that they don't really see where their place is in the ecosystem, and so yeah, we definitely have some kind of a reevaluation around how we can best put our foot forward, because we were like very excited to have Unity be a good pathway for people to find out and use Serve. Megalodon, what's up, man? It's good to see you.
Hey Ed, good to see you too. Hey Rob and everybody else. I've been looking forward to this. Rob kind of posted an event, and yeah, it's excellent to finally be here. I do have a quick question though. I've heard a lot about the games you're going through. There's a lot of lists coming through of ex-Harmony games or present Harmony games. It's hard to keep up, right? But I haven't heard McVerse in any of that, which was obviously when Lambo NFT, when it was back on Harmony. So I was wondering, are you guys in communication with the McVerse team? Because they do have a game built in Unity, as I'm sure everybody is aware. And also, the founders are Validator on Harmony as well.
Oh yeah. So we have it's Bourbon, I believe. I've talked to him about that we're building Serve. I haven't reached out specifically around the game that they have on Avalanche now, and I do think that they will be interested based on just the rough conversation or I think we were both on a Twitter space actually, and just briefly talked to him about it there. But yeah, everything that I heard from him was implying that win testnet, then Lambo. But essentially, yeah, I think they would be a great partner. I think honestly, they'll understand more than most why Serve is worth going after, just because of just, I think, how they were treated, and what we can do from here. They've already kind of been doing in a lot of ways. It's really pretty. Yeah, it is. We're in this mode right now. Let me just maybe make it clear, I guess. We're in this mode right now where we've been kind of setting up the basics and going over, like, how can we do this, and then now we're getting to a point where we have enough and we've proven enough where we need to be starting to talk to validators, and that's become kind of our prerogative right now. We have a few projects that we've tapped, and I do want to keep growing that, but I basically I knew that as a developer, if you come to me and talk to me about what I can do and how I can work with you, I got to be able to work with you. Or else, even if I like you and I want to do the work, if there's no test net, if there's nothing for me to actually do, then you're kind of wasting my time. And so I didn't want to do that to them or anyone, to where, the closest thing would be like, well, if anything you can do with us, you can do on Harmony. So just use Harmony as a test net for now. It's kind of, especially because, as I found, most people don't want to talk to you after you say the H word. Like, they basically have PTSD around that word. And I don't think that there's quite a few of them, people who feel that way. And I'm kind of one of them, to be honest. But yeah, so they're definitely not being excluded. I love those guys and the work they're doing, and yeah, so it's really just a matter of, like, getting the network operational, getting to where we can get back into the swing of things, where we're just focused on building things and having fun and building and having a community that's, like, excited about decentralized authority and just that punk rock attitude that really makes this place thrive. And yeah, they definitely represent that.
Well, that's awesome, and I wouldn't think for 1 minute you would exclude them, but I am kind of bending their ear quite a lot on a regular basis, so I'll keep in touch with SERV and keep dropping hints as you progress.
Awesome, very good. Yeah, yeah, I'll reach out. Do you think Bourbon is the right person to reach out for that, or is there a different person?
Matt McGuan is probably more.
Okay.
You can go with either, but he's more accessible because he works. He's online an awful lot, to be honest. I tend to find they don't do anything individually, which is great because they're a really solid team, but either one is good. But if you're looking at validators as well, remember McOne is a validator on Harmony and a number of chains, actually, a couple of chains.
Yeah, I think that's that's really been really helpful with just finding partners that have ran a validator on Harmony are really easy for us to kind of bring into a conversation, because our success would be their success. And so yeah, that would be awesome. I'll follow up with them for sure.
Absolutely, and I mean, you've got to think as well. I mean, it's the game they've actually produced is actually a playable game. I know I'm kind of overly keen on it. Fair enough, hands up, guilty on that one. But what a great game to have for yourselves.
Yeah, definitely indeed. Well, cool. Yeah, I'll circle back with them, and yeah, I think one of the other things, I don't know. I know we're definitely hoping to have a to kind of continue down this road of partnerships. We have been working with the Ava platform, or Aya, I guess is it called. And I've been reaching out to some of the people over at Findora about how we can actually have a privacy layer to what we're doing. And yeah, legitimately, there's a lot of things that don't need to be private, but there's a lot of things that do. And so rather than trying so much to build our own privacy or ZK approach, which we can definitely add ZK. It's not super easy, but it's possible to add ZK anywhere. But one thing that's been really making me feel like hopeful is the ability to not have to do that and actually just partner with other networks. Findora being one. Another one that we've had really good conversations as far as partnering with, because that's kind of where we are, is the low level partnerships at this point. Is Ergo. We're currently working with them to basically allow for Ergo to be a funding resource for SERV. So if someone wanted to buy SERV tokens, they'd be able to use the proof of work network and privacy, built layer that is the Ergo platform. And I don't know if everybody's familiar, but I've done some work with them in the past, and they're just a diehard team, like legitimately doing a lot of the same things that we're trying to do, but focused on a different protocol. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of people like Mick Oneverse and when like the whole team like that are doing, like, we're all doing things for the right reasons. We're just not all aligned in all the ways we can be. And I think a lot of people really believed that Harmony could have been or can be that. I think that's kind of shifted a little bit since the hack. But in other ways, I think there is a channel, a pathway for us to just come out of this squeaky clean and finding who our allies are and just driving ahead. And so far, I've been just blown away by the amount of people being happy to just reply to DMs and make it happen. It's maybe it's the bear or what it is, but whatever it is, but we're definitely we're not alone, and that's been just super encouraging. We're making great progress. We've got a pretty badass team that's showing up and doing the work, and we've got a solid code base that's even actively being developed. I don't know if like for how long or forever or whatever it is, but it does seem like we have a really good chance of serving people and making something that's built to last. And yeah, I'm really excited about just thank you to everyone that's kind of come and listen to this ramble and rant. And stay tuned. We'll probably do at least one of these SERV syncs on Twitter Spaces or X Spaces, whatever the hell we're doing, at least once a month, if not more. We've been doing them in the Discord, which is public and why anyone can join and be involved in the call. Yeah, so it's yeah, I think with that, if there's any other questions or any other thoughts or anything that anyone else wants to jump in and talk about, I might just wrap it up and give everyone their day back. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining the call and asking really good questions and just being involved. And we got Ogre right when I'm wrapping up. But yeah, it's gonna be good. I think we're gonna really do something great here, and I do believe that we have the right attitude. What's up, Matt?
Nothing much. I just got caught up. Crazy day. Trying to stop my ex-wife from committing suicide after she had a horrible breakup with her boyfriend. Just crazy day. And I unfortunately was not able to make it here earlier. All's well. Talked her down. So things should be good. I was hoping to just come in and that it had been recorded so I could give it a listen. And come to find out y'all are still on. Glad to see it. Glad to be able to just say hello. I'll be going back and re-listening here. Appreciate you for what you guys are doing.
Yeah, man. Sorry to hear that, man. I know that's not fun. But and for more than one reason, I'm sure it's not fun. But yeah, it's good to have you here. No, I think that Ogre or Matt's been just very helpful in helping us, formulate what SERV should and shouldn't be, and just really grateful to have you on the call.
Real quick, if I could. I don't know how many people you've had run through here, but right now I see 16 people. There's a little button in the bottom right-hand corner. If you're mobile, hit that, throw it a like, and give it a share so that other people, if you liked what you heard and you enjoyed this and you think it's going somewhere, please share it out. Spread the word. Let people know this is obviously a grassroots campaign.
That's it, man. That's what. Yeah, getting that social magic. I love it. Awesome. Well, pretty sure we're good to go here. If anyone wants to jump on the call next week, or just jump into our Discord, and you can. Well, it's the same time every Thursday at 1:30 Pacific Standard. And yeah, we're here to have a dialogue. There's actually the SERV Validator DAO is also up and running. There's a Discord for that, which we can link. I'll put it as a one of the pinned tweets or something, a highlights or something, on one of these, so you can get a hold of them. Because there's a lot of questions that really need debate. The forums are also a great source. I'll link that under this Twitter space, and yeah, that's kind of where we want to be having our governance formal conversations. It's happy to have it on Twitter, happy to have it on Discord, but we have a nice little forum set up to really get everyone's opinion, not just who's around at the time. Well, thank you guys all again, and thank you to our kind of leadership team that showed up for this call too. And I'm beside myself with just gratitude for how you've really made it easy to work hard. I'll say that. It's been a lot of work, but it feels just like trying not to. I'm getting choked up, guys. I'm not trying to, but it's been a wonderful and just inspiring couple of months, just getting to get where we are today. And I'm looking forward to next month and the month after, and the LLD and all this stuff. All right, I'm rambling. Love you guys. Thanks so much, and I'll see you online.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I just gotta say, it's definitely inspiring to see and see all the work that you do, Ed, and definitely much appreciated. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Like Matt said, please share the space and try to get as many listeners as possible. And we'll see you soon. Love you all.